Hello, Hainted Loves. Welcome to Homespun Haints Bonus Edition. I'm Becky.
And I'm Diana.
And I can't hear out of my right ear, so this is going to be really interesting.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know what happened. Well, I do know what happened. I got into a fist fight with my Hapkido instructor, and she put me in a chokehold.
Frankie's tough. You don't want to get into a fight with Frankie.
It was stupid. She kept going, "Come at me!" And like an idiot, I did. So it resulted with her putting me in this weird chokehold, and I haven't been able to hear out of this ear since.
Oh.
I'm sure
well,
Huh?
You signed a waiver, so...
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I guess I did. That's okay. I've got another ear. It's like having two kidneys, right? So...
I thought you were going to say like having two kids. Just in case.
Oh! Whoa, that went dark. We are going to talk today about wildcrafting.
Oh, this is so exciting. I can't wait to hear more about this because you tell me I know what it is, but Becky, I'm not sure if I know what it is in the context of the way Tempest was talking about it earlier this week.
Yes, on Monday, we had the episode where we interviewed Laura Tempest Zakroff, who has written these fabulous books here. I'm going to show you. We've got Sigil Witchery. Is that clear?
Back up.
Yeah.
Back
up, but it's going to be behind the mic. There we go.
Yeah, it's
all right,
perfect.
That's Sigil Witchery. You can tell I've been reading it. I've got bookmarks. And there's a Homespun Haints card stuck to that one. Visual Alchemy. Ooh. So these are two amazing books that she sent us before we even interviewed her. That's not the only stuff that she's written. But one thing she talked about in that interview was wildcrafting a spell by using a pen from the bank and a gas receipt. And Diana was like, "Oh, tell me more. That sounds..."
I want to know. What does it mean?
So, wildcrafting, like I said, you know what this is. It's usually used synonymously with foraging, but it's not quite the same thing.
Shout out to Sanam.
So,
sorry, it's usually used synonymously.
Yes, I need to see
she
Sanam,
did
my
that just
chiropractor, fix my
so
ear.
your ear might function again.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's skeletal. I don't think there's a hedgehog stuck in there or anything.
A hedgehog, ooh.
That's very spindly. So,
Puckwudgie.
So to wildcraft basically means to look for something and obtain something free and use it for a purpose other than what it was originally intended for, if it was planted or constructed by people, or to just go into nature and find things that are growing. So right now there's this huge push for foraging, and this is something we've been doing in Appalachia forever. We're like, okay, you guys finally figured out, because we're poor. And
these roots are free.
Yes. And a long time ago, a lot of the woods in the Appalachian areas were just communal. It was communal. You could just go in there and you could pick things. And I did this as a kid. I'm sure everybody does this as a kid. You wander through the woods. You pick random things. Sometimes you get a rash. Sometimes you die. Sometimes it's fine.
Sometimes you hear an eerie fiddler and then all the snakes go by and you just go, Tennessee.
You understand, yeah.
I understand. I'm getting it now. I've known you long enough.
Right. And I did this as a child, and I got pretty good at knowing which herbs were going to cause which colors, and I could rub them together with cloth or paper and stain them and make different colors and things with them.
I thought you meant colors, like which colors of rashes you would end up with.
Oh,
after touching
well,
the herbs.
there was that too. And also I learned what color of fire I could make with different things too. That's
a dangerous experiment.
You know. Being a free-range kid in the 80s in Appalachia, all sorts of things happen. So nowadays, this has gotten very popular thanks a lot to COVID, right? People are stuck at home, and now there's a recession, or people are getting out in nature because it's like all they could do, right, to enjoy someplace other than their tiny apartments. And then there's been this huge upsurge on social media about going out and like harvesting your own mushrooms. And this root will cure warts. And this root will make a great salve that you can use for bug bites. And this you can make an oil out of and it will cure herpes. I don't know. There's just so many things out there and people are like, oh my God, all this stuff is for free and I can just go get it. And then I can spend 2 years drying it out and canning it and putting it in my storeroom. And like, yeah, that's the great thing about it is free, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It does take a lot of knowledge. There's a reason a lot of those foragers on their social channels sign off by saying don't die because
because you get what you pay for.
Because a lot of this stuff is harmful and you need to know what you're looking for. Now, that's not to say that you and I cannot wildcraft on our own without having to know all of these things about which herbs to eat or not to eat, or how to know if an acorn is infested with maggots before you try to make, roast it and make tea out of it or something, because that's a thing. You have to like put them in water, and if they float, you throw them out. Anyway, so
like eggs. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of cool things. Oh, and also another cool thing is like there's different fruits you can cut open, and it will tell you by like how many seeds there are and things, like what the winter is going to be like coming up. I mean,
oh right, the persimmons.
Yeah,
with the spoon seed versus the knife seed.
Yes,
yes.
So wildcrafting's pretty cool. Like I said, a lot of people use it synonymously with foraging, but foraging specifically refers to food. Okay. And some will go so far as to say foraging refers to eating while you move through the space. So you're like, ooh, a berry. Oh, that mushroom looks like it won't kill me. Oh, a snake. That kind of thing.
Oh, dear. I'm a big fan of cooking. Especially snake.
Yes. Especially nowadays when you don't know, like, if pesticides have been messed around or whatever.
Yeah.
But wildcrafting also refers to gathering things for free that you may not necessarily want to eat.
Okay.
So, Diana, have you ever gone dumpster diving?
Oh, God, yes. Do you know me?
Exactly. I told you you've wildcrafted.
I was raised in a dumpster.
I know that that's not what all these earthy, cottagecore sites are advocating for when they talk about wildcrafting, but I'm sorry. Dumpster diving is wildcrafting.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I just wildcrafted a cheetah-covered chair from my neighbor's driveway 2 days ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
So
So it's this like freeganism.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the very first examples I can remember of my family doing this, I had to have some kind of a basket for school. I was like 5 or 6. I needed to have a basket for school. And my father, I mean, there was no internet. It's not like he looked this up. He was just like, oh, okay. He went to our side yard where we had a bunch of English ivy growing. He cut off a huge vine of the English ivy. He pulled all of the leaves off. He soaked the vine so it was malleable. And then he took an old can of, you remember those old Quaker Oats jars, the big round cardboard jars? He used that as a mold and he wove this vine around the Quaker Oats thing, and then when it dried, he pulled the Quaker Oats jar out, and I had a basket. It had a few leaves still stuck on it, and it wasn't exactly woven very well, but he was like, there you go. Like, it was nothing. Like, this is what you do. You need a basket, you go find some ivy.
I just learned the art of basket weaving for you, child, to have one single basket. Enjoy. And as a child, you were probably like, damn it, Dad, everybody else has a JanSport basket. Right?
No, I was in Appalachia. I was like, damn it, Dad, everybody else's ivy woven baskets were better.
So this was the assignment, basically, unofficially.
I don't know. I don't remember. I was very young, but I do distinctly remember like him, like a lot of curse words coming out as he's trying to figure out how to weave, and my mom going, Mark, what are you doing? He's like, I'm making a basket, okay? But that's a great
The confidence required to make that statement of making a basket as opposed to just, I have no idea, but I hope it works so we don't have to go buy a basket from the store. That's what I would probably be saying. But yeah, I'm making a basket. That's quite a declarative sentence there.
I'm sure you've
For
made
someone
baskets,
who's never
right?
done it.
Didn't you ever take
Have I
basket
made a
weaving?
basket? I mean, yeah, out of like construction paper when I was a kid, but
Shit.
not like out of English ivy that I've stripped from a hedge.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, another thing to add to the list of things to do next time you come. You have to
Yeah,
come.
We're already
and-
making corn husk dolls.
I know. Which is also, okay, a form of wildcrafting, if you think about it. Especially if you go to the grocery store. You know how they have that bin of
Where you shuck your corn.
where you shuck
Husk
your corn? Whatever.
Shuck, is it shucking?
I have no idea.
Detassel? You detassel your corn.
I don't know words. We just
I'm
do it.
traumatized because farmers make fun of me for not knowing the difference between lady parts and male parts of corn. They knew a lot about corn sex. It was kind of awkward.
That's a discussion for another episode. Anyway, so go to your grocery store and they have that trash can. They're just going to throw it out. You know, where they've got all the corn husks. They'll be like, hey, can I take these?
Oh, you ask? Does it still count as wildcrafting if you ask permission?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
You should always make sure you are doing things legally.
Woodland creatures, I'm taking this route.
Well, actually, there are some wildcrafters who say you should always give thanks.
Well, that's just in general a good thing to do.
Yeah, I know, but like, you know, especially if you're like picking bugs off of a tree to then go roast and make red dye out of, somebody's giving their life for you. It's not completely free. So, you know, those
It's not completely free. It's only life or death.
right?
Poor carmine bugs.
So be like, hey, thank you for letting me use your shells so I can make pretty things. So, I would ask that grocery store employee, be like, hey, you're just going to throw those out. Can I have some of them? And that 16-year-old kid who's trying to organize the tomatoes and, you know, they keep falling off and he's trying to put the tomatoes back. They keep falling off and you make a note to yourself, do not get those tomatoes today. You ask him that and he'll be like, yeah, sure, whatever. And you walk out with your arm full of corn husks and you go make tamales or corn husk dolls. Hey, cool. You wildcrafted some corn husks.
Okay.
Oh, hey there. So that's another thing that I remember doing as a kid. And this is why I'm like, Diana, I bet you've done some of this stuff because you are so goddamn cheap that I know you have. I did not mean that as an insult, by the way. It is 100% a compliment.
I take pride in that. Thank
For
you.
people who do not know, Diana can take a quarter and stretch it over 3 or 4 years.
A quarter won't buy anything anymore, but $1 I could stretch for 3 or 4 years. Yes.
Yeah,
Quarter
plus-
won't even last 1 year. It's strange math.
Okay. Anyway, I've seen this woman in action and I have learned so much from her. It is amazing. This is why one day I want to create a series on like living with Diana. It'll be like that Ed Begley series where he's like so cheap that he's like powering his toaster by riding a bike. Like that's
If I could do that, I would do that.
I know you would.
It
I
would get
know
me to
you
ride my exercise bike, which it doesn't go anywhere. So that's really the only way to get me
It's
to
like,
ride
if
it.
I want toast, come on. So anyway.
No, did I tell you the story about my tea and Abel?
Oh, no. Please. Is this a wildcrafting story?
This is. I didn't know that this was a wildcrafting story, but you can tell me if it is. So,
Okay.
When I was living in New Orleans, we dumpster dived a lot, and what I mean by dumpster diving is, of course, driving up and down the street and seeing people put furniture out by the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not like actually leaping into a dumpster because that would be illegal. We would never do that on this show. But for people who put stuff out by the side of the road, a lot of the time they'll put stuff out that's still perfectly good. It's just ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got this coffee table one day that was just the most beautifully structurally sound coffee table, but the top looked like somebody had done tap dancing lessons on it. It was just awful. And we don't know how to refinish a table. So I thought, what else do I have that I can get for free? And it turned out that earlier in the year, I'd signed up for a new bank account. At the time, when you opened a bank account, they gave you crap instead of money. Like today, they'll be like, get a $200 bonus when you do these deposits. Back then, they were like, get a toolbox and a subscription to a magazine. And we were like, okay, sounds like a deal to me. So I opened up this bank account. I found this magazine subscription list. There was nothing on it that I was like resonating with at all. I'm like, I don't care about golf. I don't care about fish. I don't care about, Business Week, whatever. I don't want any of these magazines. And the only one on the list that I could think of that I'd want as a free magazine was Maxim, which, if you're not familiar, is basically like kind of like the Chive kind of vibe. It's like a men's health magazine where they have mostly, not quite, but mostly naked women on every page, pretty
they're
much.
Not completely naked. They're
not
like
completely.
It's not like Playboy,
like
but they're like
bikini
very
clad,
scantily clad.
like
yes,
skimpy bikini clad women. And I was like, that's really the only magazine I could think of that I would even open.
It's a good magazine. List. It's hilarious.
It's an okay magazine. It's very funny. Yeah, I read it for the articles. Exactly. So anyway, I had this giant stack of Maxims that I gotten for free, and I had this ugly table that I gotten for free, and I had an idea.
Oh.
And so I went through my stack of Maxims and I cut out all the pictures of scantily clad lingerie models and I pasted them with Mod Podge all over the table.
That is brilliant. I love it.
And then when Amber asked me what I was doing, I said, I'm making a tea and Abel.
That is so cool. Do you still have this?
No, I sold it at a garage sale and I was incredibly proud of myself. I sold it for much more than I got it for.
Well, yeah.
Which was free.
Anything is more than free. How much? I'm curious. How much did you sell it for?
Probably like $15.
Whoa. Oh,
I know.
man.
What a profit, right? only took like 4 days of work and voila.
See, I told you you've
so proud.
wildcrafted. You are a wildcrafting queen. You just didn't know
Thank you.
it.
I didn't know.
You didn't know. Yes. And I want to give you a couple more examples of things I wildcrafted as a kid. And I want to know if anybody else did this stuff. So another fun project you can do with your kids with wildcrafting. My mom and I used to do this all the time. It's so stupid, but we loved it. So again, this is the 80s where fashion was a little bit... I know we think about 80s fashion now as like all cool with like all these sharp angles and fun hairs and lots of sequins and stuff. But let me tell you, there was a lot of junk that came out during that time. And one of them were these sweatshirts Mom and I made. So
was it puff paint?
No, it wasn't.
Was it hook and latch?
No, not quite.
What was it, Becky?
You could use puff. I don't think you could use puff paint. But we would go to Walmart or Goodwill. And we would actually buy like the ugliest sweaters. Not intentionally ugly. It was just whatever was really cheap. And we probably thought they were pretty because, like I said, this was the 80s. Or we would go through our closets. So this is wildcrafting, I guess. Go through our closets and find old garments that just didn't look that pretty anymore. Mm-hmm. And then we would go into the yard and find leaves that had fallen from the trees. And, the cooler, the better. The leaves with the holes in them and the veins showing and all that was cool too. And then we would set out all of these paints, fabric paints, and we would dip the leaves into the paint and just then press them onto the shirts. So make all these cool patterns and like we used, of course, lots of sparkly paint because it was the 80s. And we made all of these garments like with all these patterns and cool things with these leaves coated in paint. And then because we did not want to waste anything, we took these paint covered leaves and we put them on a sheet of cardstock and framed it and made art.
I thought you were going to say you crumbled them and made confetti for parties.
Oh, parades. No. I think there's still one framed somewhere in the family.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was kind of a fun little project we did. And of course, we've all gathered nuts and made dye out of it, right? You just
nuts.
boil
when you
it.
Say nuts.
Or leaves from a nut tree. Like
I made Easter egg dye out of onions.
That works.
Onion skins. Yeah.
Especially if you found the onions.
Why, Becky, I do have wild onions growing in my backyard, but I don't think they're yellow enough to dye Easter eggs.
I used to make
spring onions.
I used to make bracelets out of wild onions.
That sounds stinky.
Yeah.
Was it to ward off vampires?
No, it's just because they were like long and you could like weave them because they've got that weird like tubular thing. I loved that. I loved picking wild onions. I wonder why my parents hated it so much. Or making
The
bouquets.
laundry. Oh, no.
Making bouquets out of wildflowers. This is another great thing you can do. Especially along the side of the road. I don't know if it's like this where you are, Diana, but where I grew up, the side of the road was the best place to find wildflowers. And I think also where I grew up, probably didn't have to worry too much about pesticides because county probably just couldn't afford it. And the three wildflowers that we would find most often, which I see people growing these in their yards now, and I'm like, I grew up and just told those were weeds. But they are thistle, which actually has a lot of medicinal properties,
Yeah.
black-eyed Susans, and Queen Anne's lace. So those three.
Oh, yeah.
You had the purple.
Those are like commercial flowers now.
Yeah, I grew up
Totally.
like being told they were weeds, and I would make
Sad.
like wildflower bouquets out of them, and people would be like, "Those are just weeds." I'd be like, "But they're pretty. It's Queen Anne's lace is really pretty."
I used to make little chains out of the clovers in the yard too, and make a little clover crown to wear, be a fairy king.
Or buttercups. You could probably do it with buttercups too.
We never had buttercups. That's amazing. I love that idea.
So these
We
are
had
all
forsythia, and I made like little crowns of thorns out of the little branches of the forsythia bush.
Oh, did you actually have like blood dripping down your head too?
I mean, ketchup.
Would you ever just like string yourself up on a fence post like like a scarecrow, but like a weird Jesus Christ scarecrow?
Yes.
Yeah, and your mom would come home and be like, "Ugh, Diana, there you are again."
My mom would probably take photos of it, and if it was, if it had been a few years later, post them on Facebook. Yes.
Right. Oh, my daughter, she's so creative.
Look at her. She thinks she's Jesus. Yep.
Well, so that's just, those are just some things from my childhood. But I mean, a lot of this sounds crafting-ish, but it is wild crafting, right? Like you could do a lot of craft projects from things you find in your yard. So, what are some other things that you've done, Diana, besides your TNA table?
Oh gosh, everything I do, Becky. I don't think I've ever not wildcrafted. I wildcraft an ugly Christmas sweater every year from things that I find at the thrift store, but also just from things that I have laying around from the rest of the projects. It's like my fridge clean out day, except it's project clean out day for the year when I make my ugly Christmas sweater. So it's kind of like a rule that I have to use everything on the sweater. And
That's
I never
great.
win any contests, but I do win a lot of weird stares. Like, what were you thinking? It's fun. I had one where I had Santa's face that like flipped up, and then you saw a little body dangling below, little like wiggly legs.
Like it was his uvula, but it was legs.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. I love it.
I found that chair in the garage, and I had a scarf that I found in the basement, and I reupholstered the chair with the scarf.
Nice.
Chair is broken. The scarf was torn, but now it looks perfect. Doesn't work. It's still broken, but it looks perfect from a distance.
I'm sure you can find a nail in somebody's driveway and fix it.
Probably. I did get a new roof a couple of years ago, so there's probably a nail in my driveway. I made that pillowcase out of vegetables, I think.
What?
Dyeing with beets.
Oh, okay. So you used it to dye? Nice. Yeah,
Beets are horrible for dyeing synthetic fabrics because it looks nice and bright magenta when you put it on, and then you rinse it off and it looks like dried blood. So it's kind of like a shocker. Like, hey, look, this is going to be so pink. Oh,
I think kids just naturally wildcraft.
oh, sure.
This is just something that we're born with. And I don't know why it gets beaten out of us when we're like, oh, yeah, I do know why. Because there comes a point, and this is why I think a lot of people like me, like, know how to do all this stuff, but we don't. Because there's a point like, ugh, I have already been through that phase of my life where I had to, like, find my own food and make my own stuff. And now I just want to go to Walmart and spend $2.
Exactly. Yeah,
Like,
it's my time is more valuable than my resources.
Yeah,
kind of
it's just not
mindset
fun
of being a
anymore.
grown up. Yeah,
yeah, it's not novel.
Like
It's
that time you told me to use dryer lint to make my own felting projects, and like sheets of felt are 60 cents. It would
Yeah.
take like 4 days of work
Yeah.
to bleach and shape this felt into a piece of felt. Maybe in the past, but
Right?
I'm not that desperate nowadays.
I feel like the very first time I ever walked into a Michael's, I was like, you could buy this stuff? You don't just have to find it?
It's like they have baskets, Dad.
Oh, and then I would see how much baskets cost, and I was like, what?
I get it. Baskets are expensive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like, why? Like, you could just go find some ivy. Don't use poison ivy. If it's furry,
Yeah.
leave it alone.
Exactly. That's a good plan. So, okay, so we've talked about how we've wildcrafted random crap in our houses, but have you ever wildcrafted magic?
Oh, yeah. Actually, just last year I was doing a spell and I needed some kind of flower for it. And a friend of mine was with me and she ran in the backyard and picked them. Came back. She was like, here we go. And it didn't specify what it was. It just had to be a white flower. And she was just like, there's some right there. Because I was like, oh, I didn't buy any white flowers. And she's like, oh, Becky, have you forgotten your roots?
Oh, you don't buy flowers. They don't belong to any man. I love that. Oh, that's nice. No, I think when I was a kid, I think my main wild crafting project for magic was taking everybody's candle wax when I went to their house. I would take their melted candle wax that was like around the edge of the candle holder and stuff. And I was like, are you using this? And they'd be like, that's trash, Diana. I'd be like, thank you. Put it in my pocket. And then I would make my own candles out of the previously melted candle wax, which
Love it.
just so you know, kids, if you get this idea, it doesn't work that well after already burning. It doesn't seem to burn as well the second time around, but you can make it out of an orange juice concentrate can, like a frozen can of orange juice concentrate. If you open it up and take the orange juice out, rinse it out, you can put the wax in there. And then when you peel it off, it'll have this cool, like, whitish, waxy film on the outside of your candle and make it look different colors and mottled. It's fun.
Oh.
So yeah, that counts. Wildcrafting magic, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Making my own ritual candles out of orange juice cans and people's trash wax. Does that count?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
That is so cool.
I mean, of course, I've taken apart random garments of clothing and tablecloths and curtains and stuff to make like altar cloths.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean,
Yeah.
that's just, I don't know if that counts.
Absolutely, it counts.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. It's using it for a purpose different than what it was originally intended for. I actually have some wildcrafted lake water right here for use in a spell.
Is that the one Christy left in your mailbox?
Yes.
You haven't used it yet?
I'm afraid to open it. Last time
I can't believe it.
last time she used some seawater and we made some spell jars and then we opened them and it was
It was smelly, huh? Yeah.
yeah, it was
I told you my pickle juice story from elementary school, didn't I?
tell us the pickle juice.
Do you remember
story.
not pickle juice, freckle juice? Do you remember the book Freckle Juice, the kids' book from the Scholastic Book Fair? Yay, it's Reading
Yeah.
Rainbow. It's 1990 something. And the book Freckle
I
Juice
remember
was
Freckle
all about
Juice.
how, there was a child who wanted freckles and was jealous. And somebody gave him this disgusting recipe of how to make juice to grow freckles. And he used it and it didn't work. So he faked the freckles. And it was a story about, I don't know, accepting yourself. But I'm such a literalist that I had to do a book report on this book. And I chose to make that exact recipe, like the actual recipe.
Oh my God.
For the freckle. It was gross. There was some really, really, really gross stuff in it. I was as authentic as I could be. Like an exact
try
replica. I did not try it. Notice my freckleless visage. But I hear it doesn't work anyway. But no, I actually made the recipe and I put it in a pickle jar and I brought it to school in my satchel because when I was in third grade, my parents didn't think I was cool enough to carry a backpack like all the other kids. I had to carry a leather satchel from the thrift store, which was a wildcraft. I didn't realize till just now.
No, if you pay for it, it's not wildcrafting.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Well, then all my thrift store projects, I guess, don't count.
Well, I mean, if you're using it a second time after you found it, swap meet stuff, definitely.
I think it was a purpose for which it was not intended because I was an 8-year-old. And
Yeah.
this was obviously a briefcase for like an adult.
Right.
Satchel. But yeah, so I
Sorry.
had my satchel. I was waiting for the bus. I had my freckle juice in my satchel. I totally forgot. And I was swinging it because I was bored waiting for the bus. And the freckle juice fell out and landed on me and busted all over the place. And I smelled really exciting for the whole bus ride home.
at least it happened at the end of the day.
At least it happened at the end of the... That's like the one time in my life where I can be like, well, thank God I don't stink until the end of the day. Like, that was the one silver lining of that story. That's why it was not too traumatic to remember.
Oh my.
Yeah, so freckle juice. Don't make it.
Yuck.
Don't be literal like me. Make a bottle of purple food coloring and water and tell your teacher you made it. That's all you need to do. No one's going to smell that. I offered.
Hopefully you got extra points for it. For doing it authentically.
No. Okay, nobody cares about authenticity in a third grade book report.
Tell me about it. I know. Well, we would have been best friends in third grade.
I know.
When I was in 10th grade, I'd gone away to a summer camp, and I had gotten like a Snapple iced tea staying in this dorm. And when I was done with it, like I closed it back and I kind of put it on my desk thinking I would finish it later, and I didn't. And 2 days later, I was like, ooh, do you think it's still good? And this guy I was dating at summer camp, summer camp crush, he comes in and he's like, oh, and he like lifted the lid off and it was fermented, like it was alcoholic. And he was like, oh, cool. And he chugged it.
Ew.
And he got drunk, which was all fine. This is another part about being Appalachian is you get your kicks where you can. So
wildcrafting alcoholic Snapple with saliva culture.
So when I got back home, I told a friend about this, and she was like, ooh, we could make our own booze. So we went into her closet. I was over at her house all the time. So we went in the closet because she always kept her closet doors shut because she had a pet mouse in there that she had to keep away from her cat. And I remember this mouse was named William. He was really cute. The cat eventually
There's so many loops and turns to this story. I'm loving this.
So anyway, we got a jar of, I think it may have been an old like pickle jar. Like I had a little bit of juice left because I think somebody in the family liked to drink the juice. And we took that and we just were like, well, what do we put in? Okay, we need sugar. So we dunked a lot of sugar in, and they're like, what? Oh, we need the sugar has to be like bound to a liquid. So we like poured in ketchup, and then we found some iced tea because I remember it was Snapple. So we poured in some iced tea and we made this awful concoction, and then we couldn't find a lid for it then. So we took like it gets worse and worse. No wonder it didn't ferment. And then we took like a piece of cloth and a rubber band around it and put it on the top. We're like, well, it doesn't alcohol have to have like oxygen to, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We were not scientists by any stretch. But anyway,
Shockingly good guess though.
So we left it in the closet for about a week. And then we came back, and I came back the next weekend, and we're like checking on it, and we're sniffing it, and like we pulled it out, we're sniffing it, we're trying to like steal each other up, like who's gonna drink it first or whatever. It doesn't really smell like alcohol, and it's got a little bit of mold in it. And just then my friend's mom walks in, and she's like, what are you girls doing? And we're like, well, and we explained it to her because like we were just like, there was nothing we could make up. Like we're sitting around this jar of moldy ketchup pickle juice. Like, how else do you explain that? And we told her what we were trying to do, and she just looks at us and she's like, what the hell? We've got beer in the fridge. If you just want to steal some beer. She's like, you guys are the dumbest. Why are you trying to make your own alcohol?
That's fantastic. Oh, wow. I wasn't expecting that twist ending.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So I guess we tried to wildcraft. I don't know. We didn't pay for any of those ingredients.
Started an illicit bathtub gin ring in 10th grade. I'm so proud of you.
Fully I knew what I was doing.
Only.
Well, Hainted Loves, hopefully we gave you some fabulous ideas for how you can wildcraft around your makeup.
I'm full of ideas. I can't wait to start making things out of magic and trash.
Really, to make magic, all you need is, as we learned, the intention and just whatever, maybe some supplies for brainstorming. Again, our guest talked about a gas receipt and a pen from the bank. It can be anything. And you can pick, if you just need to burn something, there's sticks in the woods. There's old hair. I mean, anything will work.
Yep.
And if you need to make a basket, now you know how. And if you need to make a candle, now you know how. Don't
and
use
if you
crayons.
need to make illicit beer, now you know how not to.
Right, exactly.
Just steal it from your mom's fridge. Tainted Loves, what have you wildcrafted lately? Have you ever wildcrafted magic? Did the magic work better than store-bought magic? We're going to guess it did. And we hope that you have a spooky day.